Morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tilman Brook. I'm at IGZ and ISTC, two research institutes in Germany. And today I'm chairing the webinar from the HG4RR, the Home Gardens for Resilience and Recovery series. It's the last of this year's series, or at least this season series, I should say. We hope to continue after what in Berlin is going to be the summer break. I'm really pleased that today we will talk about concerns worldwide's experience with home garden under challenging conditions. And as I will say in a moment, we have three excellent guests, one of whom is already familiar to you from previous meetings. And first, a little bit of background on who we are and what we do. If I could ask my colleague Gwen to go to the next slide. Thank you very much. Just for those of you who are not familiar, Home Gardens for Resilience and Recovery Network is a project which is just about still being funded by the German Federal Ministry for Education and Science. This grant is coming to an end, which is why this series of the webinar is coming to an end. But as I said, we hope to continue. We have a whole range of partners in academia and in practice from Germany, from several Asian countries and beyond, who are part of this network and who each have contributed their expertise on home gardens. So we better understand how home gardens, an often overlooked, small, simple, and very effective tool, can help people and households building their resilience and recovering from emergency or from disaster or from other difficult times. Next slide, please. Today's speakers first are Regine Kopplow, who is a senior advisor for food and nutrition security with Concern Worldwide. Regine is working, like myself, home-based from Berlin. She, unlike me, is a nutritionist with nearly 20 years of experience working in the humanitarian sector, managing nutrition programs in Afghanistan, Malawi, Somalia, and Nepal. So many different interesting contexts, and is now providing strategic guidance and technical support to Concern's livelihood programs across all 25 countries where Concern is operating. Next, please. After Regine, we will have Jean-Patrick Masquelier, Program Director for Concern Worldwide in Niger, who is based in Niamey, in Niger, in West Africa. And he's a humanitarian development practitioner for 10 years now. He has spent working on WASH programs and food security projects in Burkina Faso, Burundi, Madagascar, and Niger since 2011. I'm glad to have him. Last but not least, today we have Sayeed Mahmud Riadh, who's head of Concern's coastal program based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Sayeed holds a master's degree in science and a master in development studies, and is a development professional with more than 20 years of experience in areas such as climate change, climate adaptation, food security, sustainable livelihoods, and natural resource management. He has worked with Concern Worldwide in Bangladesh since 2017, leading the coastal and Char riverine sandbars programs. So we have three very experienced experts from Concern who will each give their inputs. After that, we will have a Q&A with the audience. As usual, you can use the Q&A feature here on Zoom, and I'll be monitoring your questions, and I will bring them to the attention of our speakers as much as I can. We might not manage. We have only 60 minutes and we'll finish at 3 p.m. Berlin time. If you have any technical questions, if there are any connection problems, please send a private chat to Gwen, who manages this and who forwards our slides. Thank you, Gwen, and who has admitted all of you to this session, or send her an email at the address you can see there. The talk is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube, so you can also share it later with others. Final comment, you're welcome to use the chat to talk to each other or to introduce yourself or to share contact details, but I will primarily be looking at the Q&A for questions to the speakers. So I hope that's fine and everybody is okay with these ground rules. If so, I will start without much further ado and give the floor, if that's what you say in Zoom, to Regine. I can see your screen well, Regine. You're still muted. You look slightly shocked. Would you like to unmute yourself, Regine?
I am unmuted now.
Yes, you are. Thank you. Over to you.
Apologies for that. Thanks very much. I'm going to start now with the presentation on the home gardening under challenging conditions, concerns experience from Niger and Bangladesh. In concern, home gardens are very common. We support them in various forms across many countries. In 2020 alone, we supported more than 50,000 households establishing their gardens and many more with ongoing support to already functional gardens. And home gardening in concern is not a project, but an approach promoted under resilience programs, or they are part of humanitarian response programs targeting IDPs and refugees. And gardens in concern are used to achieve several objectives, and these might include improving access to food or specific crops, improving dietary diversity, diversifying or increasing income, improving access to resources that are mainly controlled by women. In concern, we are using maybe a slightly different definition of home gardening. We say it is a small plot beside the house used for growing vegetables and fruits, mainly for home consumption. And focus here is really on that the garden is near to the home. It's pretty small, but extremely high yielding. It's often managed by women, but that's not necessarily the case. It is for growing vegetables and fruits, sometimes also herbs, or it's linked to rearing of small livestock and poultry. And the production is mainly for home consumption, but surplus is always for sale. And it's supposed to be a garden with all year round production. And it factors in seasonality of crops, and it's usually quite labor intense and requires sustainable access to quality inputs. And there are many different designs of home gardens. And in concern, we believe that the complexity of home gardening is often overlooked. And promoting home gardening is not at all an easy thing to do, especially in the contexts most of us are working in. And it requires really careful planning, implementation, and monitoring. And therefore, today we will present to you two case studies of concerns work in Niger and Bangladesh, illustrating the context-specific challenges we face, our adaptations to the approach, and also share with you what worked and what did not work so well. And with this, I am handing over to Jean-Patrick to talk about home gardening in Niger.
Okay, thank you, Regine and Tillman. So I will continue. Before presenting you our experience in home garden, I just will give you a short overview on the Niger context. So as you probably know, Niger is currently the lowest classified country on the Human Development Index in 2020. Like other countries located in the Sahel belt, Niger is extremely vulnerable to climate-related shocks, such as unpredictable rainfall, droughts, floods, advancing desertification, soil impoverishment. And each year, more than 1.5 million of people are directly affected by food insecurity, and approximately 20 to 25% of the population is regularly experiencing shortage during the lean season. So since 2015, this situation has been worsened by a rapid deterioration of the security context. So as you can see on the map on the eastern part of the country, the Difa region around the Lake Chad basin, but also on the west part of the country around the tri-border region between Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. With increased attacks of jihadist groups, forcing thousands of people to flee their homes and abandon their main economic activity. So in the framework of our approach, our main targets are extreme poor and vulnerable households with no access to land, spaces, healthy soil and water for accessing to food in sufficient quantity and quality. Moreover, the limited range of food sources with a diet mainly dependent on cereals leads also to nutritional deficiencies and high malnutrition rates. So through home gardens, our goal is to increase food production by providing an easy to use and affordable solution to these households and facilitating access to diversity of nutrient-rich vegetables. In 2020, we supported 6,000 households with home garden for a total of 42,000 of people. Next slide, please. Yeah, so before going ahead, we are now going to show you a short video to illustrate some of Concern's key intervention in the Tawa region under the RAIN program. So this is a multi-sectoral program implemented with the support of Irish Kerry Group. So I don't know if there were some difficulties with the video, but let's continue with the experience on home garden in Niger. So as you can see in the picture, we developed in Niger the vertical sax garden technology, which you probably know. It's a simple technique and quite effective way to grow a large supply of vegetables at home. So more practically, households are supported with technical assistance, training on how to make vertical sax garden, the provision of polyethylene sacks, so an average of generally 5 bags of 100 kilo per household, material and seeds. Most common crops are tomato, amaranth, lettuce, cabbage, okra, and eggplants. Next slide, please. So focusing on the Difa region, so the area located around the Lake Chad Basin, our program is supporting IDPs, refugees and returnees population which are resettled in urbanized sites from the HCR. Our strategy consists in supporting these population through the provision of services and resources, mainly in the field of agriculture and livestock, so that they can access to economic opportunity to recover and to rebuild their productive assets. Moreover, this area is characterized by very high levels of malnutrition, as you can see, with a global malnutrition rate of 19.3%, far above the national rate. So here we are talking about population with very little source of revenue and no access to land and productive assets. They are living in very small spaces with limited access to water. Even if Sachs gardens are quite simply technology to use, there are still a big need to support this household with minimum material, resources, and skills. Next slide, please. So considering this context, we support beneficiaries during 2 successive agricultural cycles. The first one between May and November, which corresponds to the common lean season, and the other one between November to May, as a way to access to diverse food production all the year long. We also adapted the technology, providing protection with nets against free grazing, locust, and pest attacks, which are quite common in this area. This to remind that here in Niger, the integration of livestock and agriculture is very common, even at a household's level, and this may cause damage to crops and create collateral health problems. We encourage also the organization into producers groups. Indeed, even if vertical Sachs garden was provided as a subsidized approach during the initial stage of the project, it was important to encourage group dynamics so that households can implement strategies for managing nurseries, to purchase inputs, and promote mutual self-help. Vertical Sachs are also a very important opportunity to sensitize households on the preparation of dishes based on nutritive foods through regular cooking demonstrations, and also to make possible for beneficiaries to learn from each other's through peer-to-peer exchange practices. So these are approaches that we are trying to encourage as much as possible. Finally, vertical Sachs garden were complemented in DIFA with cash assistance for 3 months, in order to support target population with food assistance during the lean season. Next slide, please. So here are some key data performance in relation to home gardens and this experience. So first of all, we could note that the vertical Sachs garden is a very highly appreciated technology, with more than 75% of households with functioning home garden reported during our annual surveys. Secondly, more than 85% of production is used for self-consumption or redistributed within the community, which illustrate how home gardens can contribute to improve food consumption and food diversity. It is also interesting to see that 15% of this production is used to create income by selling the surplus on the local market. Data showed also that beneficiaries could produce a total of 83 kilos of fresh products per household on average during each agricultural cycle. We can give some examples. Household favorite vegetables are tomatoes and eggplants, because they are harvested over a period of from 2 to 4 months for tomatoes and 3 to more than 9 months for eggplants. The amaranth also, which can be harvested 2 weeks after sowing, is used at least 2 or 3 times a week as ingredient to prepare dishes based on sauces or salad. Finally, post-distribution monitoring surveys showed that households receiving cash assistance combined with vertical Sachs garden performed significantly higher in terms of dietary diversity than households receiving cash assistance alone. As you can see in the table, without home gardens, only 13% of women and 30% of children achieve a high food diversity score. The combination of between cash and home garden allows to achieve much higher performance with respectively 50 and 70 of high food diversity score. So people consuming more than 7 food groups during the last 24 hours. Next slide, please. So as we just demonstrated, the use of Sachs gardens have reported good levels of success in terms of improving food security, food diversification, and income. Qualitative data show that this technology makes it possible to access to a large number of crops nearby and at a lower cost, to diversify the diet of households through self-production of vegetables, but also to mobilize small savings through reduced expenditure on buying vegetables on the market. Sachs management is also easier and advantageous using water. So for all this reason,
we lost you. Can you just repeat the last sentence? I think.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I was saying that. Do you hear me now? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
So I was saying that all the data we could collected show that so that the household could mobilize small savings through reduced expenditure on buying vegetables on the market, and to diversify their diet through self-production of vegetables. I was also saying that SAC management is also easier and advantageous due to the low physical requirements. So, and also it requires also less effort in terms of water because of its vertical nature. So for all these reasons, this technology is particularly beneficial for women and can easily be implemented in female-headed households or households with without labor force, which is quite frequent in the case of displacement contexts. Next slide, please. So in terms of weaknesses and future improvements, some households experienced a quick deterioration of the sex after 4 months of establishment, in particular due to the exposure to sun and heat here in Niger. So 2 options are considered for the next phases of the program. First one is to continue promoting the sack garden, but with more durable materials such as jute, but also to try the keyhole garden as a more sustainable version of the sack garden, even if it's more difficult to implement in such challenging contexts. Even if vertical sacks technology requires less inputs, access to water still remains a challenge. So there is still the need to continue advocating for implementation of multi-sectoral programs, which is very important, and to also find synergy with other components, especially with the wash components. Finally, there is still need for quantitative data. We have shown some very interesting data, but there are still a big need to collect data on nutritional and food security outcomes for this specific intervention. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jean-Patrick, on the example of Niger. Now we are moving on to home gardening in Bangladesh, and I'm handing over to Sayeed.
Okay. Thank you, Regine. I'm Riadh. I work for Concern Worldwide, and I welcome to you all to my presentation. So first, actually, I would like to share our objectives of Concern's program in Bangladesh and how home gardening is, addressing these issues are aligned with our programming. Actually, in Bangladesh, we are implementing this home gardening in a very challenging context. That means where the coastal context, where the impact of climate change is so high. And in this context, actually, we are incorporating home gardening in our resilience program. And 2 projects we have been implementing in this context. One is coastal community resilience program, which has been implementing from April 2018 to March 2021. It was supported by a private donor. Actually, our overall objectives was to build the community resilience, and as a part of the community resilience, we incorporated this intervention, and later on I will explain that how it helps to build the resilience of the community. And second program was actually the CRANE. It's actually a kind of nutrition governance project. It has been implementing from January 2020, and it will continue up to December 2022, and it has been funded by European Union. Though it's a nutrition governance project, but through this project we also actually try to make available the nutritious food for the community with whom we are working. So home gardening is an intervention for this project as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, that our objectives of this home gardening, actually it give an additional opportunity to produce nutrition vegetables for their own consumption. But in addition to that, actually through the surplus production, they can earn money. So ultimately it helps to actually to address the food security, nutrition security of the targeted extreme poor people, and also the additional income contribute to raise their household income. That means through this household income, actually, we work with the extreme poor women, and it helps them to empower their within the household and in the society as well. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, actually, we have in implementing this program or intervention in a very challenging context. So the challenges in the coastal context, as you know, that our coastal areas are, very much susceptible to the natural disasters. You know that cyclone, tidal surge are very common here. Almost every year, our community faces this kind of natural disasters. So through these natural disasters, actually, we are experiencing the salinity intrusion in the locality. So actually, it hampers the soil quality. That means that the salinity within the soil is high, and it is very difficult to produce the vegetables in this context or in these situations. And we try to overcome this through our intervention. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned here, in the coastal context, though during the flooding, water is available, but at the same time, that we have the drought as well. During the dry season, actually, the community also experienced the drought, and there is, the irrigation is difficult for them. And at the same time, during the flood or immediate after flood, water logging situations prevailed, and it is very difficult to find land for cultivation. So it's again a challenge for the community. Then some challenges regarding the home gardening actually is very common in other contexts as well. A kind of technology, that means adaptive technology, as we are experiencing the impact of the climate change. So we need technology which need to be adapted with the local context. Then actually availability of the planting materials, seeds, and input supports for the community. And the next one, last one, is the access to the market, particularly the women. You know that the context is very remote and communication is very challenging. And for the women to get access to the market, if they have the enough harvest, again, to sell the production is very difficult for them. And as well as we are working at the very remote areas where the awareness level is very low. So low awareness or understanding the importance of diversity is very important, and it is very low. So we actually work on this issue as well. Now, actually, I would like to mention that, earlier also I mentioned that we implement this project in our coastal context. It's actually in the Khulna division of a Bagara district. We implement the program in 4 sub-districts, Mollarhat, Kochua, Mongla, and Sharonkola. Actually, all the sub-districts are very close to the Bay of Bengal, that means sea, and very susceptible to the natural disaster, and almost every year they experience the cyclone. Then actually to this program, actually we target 26,000 extreme poor household, and all are women-headed household, and total number of gardens were actually 23,100. And support we provided, actually we provided training to them to build their capacity, though they have their indigenous knowledge, but we provided training to cultivate or to raise the garden in a scientific way. And we provided a rainwater harvesting system, which is very important because water is very scarce for them, and salinity is too high. And in this locality, it is very difficult to get potable water. So we provide the rainwater harvesting system to the community, and we provide the cash and voucher assistance to access to the agricultural inputs, like to get the quality seed, quality fertilizer, pesticide, and fungicide. And we also provide cash support to buy bamboo, fencing net, etc. as an input support. And we found that this works very well. We provide the cash support actually through mobile money transfer. So now I would like to share some adaptations to home gardening in the coastal area of Bangladesh. As you know that we promote actually climate smart technology. That means that, as the locality, climate impact of the climate change is so high. So we need to introduce the climate smart technology through different garden designing, particularly the sack garden. As my earlier colleague also mentioned that they use the sack garden in a different context, but we also found that in the coastal context where salinity is too high, sack garden is very much promising. And I would like to, can you go to the next slide and I'll come back. In the next slide, can you show again the next slide? Then I'll come back there to the slide again. Yeah, you can see the sack garden. Then here also you can see the tower garden we also use in this context. Can you go back to the slide again? Yes, so these are the actually the garden design we use, and for the technique we use the, in the next slide you have seen already that we have the some mulching technology and pitcher irrigation. It's a kind of indigenous technology and we supported them to use to address this issue. So it helps them, and also use the sex pheromone trap actually for pollination for particularly some different vegetables production system actually. Then also actually we promote some improved production technology like introduction of quality seeds. We provided the quality seed in a small quantity, then small packs as they can buy very easily. And we provide support or provide technical assistance to understand the cultivation technique like spacing, line to line distance, what is appropriate, and plant to plant distance. And we also provide them support to understand and to practice the weeding, to prepare the bed, how to what should be the bed size convenient for them, and the pit, how to prepare a pit for planting. That kind of technical support we provided to them. And most important is that for the sustainability issues, actually, we improve, we link them with the market. That means we, in the context, we also develop some service provider and develop some vendors who are providing support to them to get the agricultural inputs. And also we support them with government line department, like Department of Agriculture, actually, and they actually provide support to them to provide training, they join, and they provide the technical assistance, and we link them as after the project period, they can get the technical assistance for them. That's very important. And then I mentioned that actually through our current project, we are trying to provide and develop, engage with the private sector to provide them a small mini pack seeds as they can buy readily available, because you know that our farmers, they can't buy a big size of bag for the seeds. So we are trying to provide small bag size as they can buy it readily available. Next slide, please. So here you can see the technology what I've discussed already. Okay. So well, in this picture, you can see that, there is a woman standing beside a water tank, and also in front of the house, there is a home garden. Actually, what we did, actually, we provided support to them for rainwater harvest system. Actually, so water scarcity is very high, and to get potable water is very difficult. But along with the water tank, we also provided them some cash support to raise a home garden, actually. And we made it mandatory for all the receiver who receive the rainwater harvest system. So as they can use the surplus water for the irrigation purpose as well. And also it helps them to meet their dietary requirement, nutritious requirement. And from the surplus production, actually, they can earn money and improve their income, increase their income at the household level. And during the COVID and pandemic time, we found that actually this home gardening was very much useful. They can ensure the food security for their family as well. So we found that it works very well in this situation. And some of our household and women actually, they try to produce their own seeds, and that during the lockdown period, that it is very difficult to move outside of their home and to get to the market. And then at that time we found that they share their own produced seeds among themselves. That's also found very effective. Next slide, please. So actually providing cash support for the rainwater harvesting, we found that very much effective. As I also mentioned that, during the COVID situations, actually their main members have lost their job and they are staying at their home. Then at that time, actually they are supporting their wife to cultivate the home, work at the home garden. And at that time, actually they grow more and they made their family household requirement. At the same time, they get the surplus production, which they can sell and earn additional income. So during this COVID period, we found that their male members of the household are found that very supportive to them, work at the home garden and grow more vegetables, and they can meet their requirement as well as they can sell in the market, which helps them to meet this crisis period. So during this COVID situation, actually we found this home garden very much useful and supportive for them, and they appreciate it. And what that didn't, well, actually to address the salinity, still we are actually in a trial stage. That means that we are trying to find technology to adapt with these salinity situations. So we found that in moderate case, actually it is very possible, but where the salinity is very high, then it is very difficult. We have also tried to identify some vegetables. We have set up some kind of research. We are planning to set up research with an Agriculture Research Institute to identify the salinity tolerant varieties of vegetables which can grow more. And at the same time, that we have we have tried to establish the linkage with the government line department, but due to the remoteness and communication interruption, it is very difficult sometimes for the government officials to provide support to them. So we are trying to establish the linkage with the government department, and as well as we have very successful evidence at the field level, but that's only documented through the case study, but we did not have enough systematic data collection procedure. So we are trying to establish, that systematic data collection regarding the production, the nutritional impact, food security outcomes. That's issues we need to collect some data on those issues. And at the same time, it is very important to link them with the market. Market linkage also, I think there is a very scope to work, because
Okay.
I can't hear you just now.
I think we lost Sayeed, but it was actually the end of his presentation. So I think we are just moving on. Just to wrap it up, in Concern, this year we are really working on generating more evidence for all the home gardening work we are doing across so many countries. And currently there is a home garden assessment underway in 7 countries using a standardized questionnaire. We are going to compile a lot of monitoring data over time, and that is going to feed into a centralized database and generating dashboards to visualize the outcome. And with this data is supposed to feed into a real pool of evidence and learning that can help us better developing a guidance to further improve the quality of our home gardening, especially the effectiveness and efficiency of our interventions. And with this, I'm going to hand back to Tilman. Thanks very much.
Thank you, all three. I loved your presentation, and I loved what presumably was a drone, or at least some big balloon taking you over your site. Seeing this beautiful countryside and the gardens so clearly recognizable in their pattern. Yeah. just made me wonder, and I think it was echoed by some people asking, how sustainable sort of are these interventions? You know, how much evidence do you have for these gardens continuing over time as maybe support is wound down to some extent?
Well, maybe I can respond to this for overall and then hand over to Jean-Patrick and Sayeed. I think we have to acknowledge that we have some difficulties in saying that this is sustainable, but what we know is that people are highly appreciating the support, and at least anecdotally, we know that people continue, but I don't have a percentage to say how many actually do and over how many years they do. I don't know.
Yeah, to complete Regina, I think it's the same here. I think we'll need to have some more data at the end of our projects. But something I want to stress maybe is that home gardens, yeah, there can be difficulties for these very vulnerable and poor population to continue, because still they need to generate revenue and to make the priority on this type of technology. But on the other hand, this technology is very simple and very affordable. So in the one hand, there is a question of sustainability, but on the other hand, I think it's also a simple technology that can be replicated quite easily and easily sustainable, easily sustainable. So I think it is something very important to stress also.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have many colleagues who have been part of previous webinars, so welcome to those, and glad to see you engaging and asking questions. So Dr. Dhruva Bhattarai, for example, is asking, isn't 83 kilograms of fresh vegetables per household too low for 6 months?
Sorry, I have lost my connection there.
We're glad to have you back. Yeah, I'm sure they reconnected you, the powers that are.
Yeah, we actually continued. I think you were more or less through with your presentation anyway, so we have just started the question and answer session.
Yeah,
okay,
so I'll just be reading out some questions, and then, you know, as they are directed towards you, please feel free to come back in, and if you want to say anything else from what you missed to say earlier. But I think Regina did an excellent job at reading your mind, so to speak. Yeah, filling in for you. I was just reading the question of our colleague Dhruva, who asked, isn't 83 kilograms of fresh vegetables per household too low for 6 months? I mean, households can be quite large in Niger, for example, right? So how much vegetables should we be eating? How much of a gap is being filled?
Quite difficult to answer the question really precisely, but I think, you know, I started the presentation saying that people are quite dependent of a very low number of food sources, and we know that sax gardening really increase the number of food sources and the number of vegetables that they can access to. So I think there is really an improvement in terms of food consumption and food diversity. So it's quite difficult, you know, to compare a situation where people do not access to a lot of vegetables to another situation where they really improve their food diversification. So probably they would need more inquiries and evidence on that question. Yeah.
I think it's a contribution. You know, we are not aiming for having a household just surviving on the produce they produce in a home garden. It's a garden. It's not a vegetable plot that is supposed to produce enough to feed the whole family throughout the year. We will not achieve this through a home garden. It requires much more. We talk about livelihood interventions overall to support.
Okay, well, that leads us to the question of Sivabrata. Oops, my screen jumped, possibly because more questions were answered. Sivabrata Chowdhury, who writes, it has been the experience in many countries that communities are relatively unaware about dietary diversity. Can you share what specific measures were taken to convince families to take up multiple varieties in their home gardens? I think it speaks to the topic that you mentioned just now. You know, these are home gardens. This is not primarily to maximize revenue or even to maximize, you know, growth, but but they have to know why they're doing it, and they have to, appreciate it not just as a sort of botanical diversity in its own right, but what the dietary implications and benefits are.
I think what we have to be aware is that dietary diversity, when we measure it, we are talking about food groups. So we are not talking about crops, we're talking about food groups. And most of the vegetables and fruits that we are producing are belonging to the same food group. So yes, we will be able to increase dietary diversity. And I think the data from Niger nicely showed the changes there. But we also need other foods to contribute to a real diverse diet. And what measures? I think both presentations highlighted that there are activities like cooking demonstrations, nutrition training for participants, this is the objective of these activities is really to increase awareness on the importance of dietary diversity and how to achieve it. And normally this is also linked to localized special recipes that are developed that people can prepare even when they have a small budget.
Yeah.
Can
About the small budget? Yeah, please.
No, I was just saying that, at least all the qualitative data we could collect say that it's home garden that really appreciated. It's one of the most appreciated intervention we do, because people beyond the fact that they can gain access to more products for their food consumptions, they also discovered some new ingredients or new dishes to prepare. So this is something, it comes also in our surveys, that it's also a way to discover new way of eating, new groups food, and it's something really appreciated by households.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. What about the issue of input cost, seed cost, and maybe also the type of seed, local seeds or seeds from elsewhere? Several listeners are asking about that. Yeah, would using other plants which you don't have to grow annually, would that help in reducing perhaps the input cost?
Yeah, well, maybe Sayeed also can give his experience from Bangladesh, but in Niger, indeed, we have also some partnership with research institutes that provide that supply us also with quality seeds. We try to look at these partnerships. We also tried, because we work on project of 3 or 4 years, we try to provide a digressive support, so that households can also buy the seeds by themselves. Some seeds can be reused from a cycle to another, so they can reuse some seeds. Some other seeds have to be renewed, and some seeds have to grow in nurseries, and some others can be directly planted inside the bag. So it depends a little bit of the variety and the types of seeds.
Yeah, in our case, actually, we linked our community. We have developed some service providers and linked them with the, seed company. And through the service providers, actually, community, that the area is very remote. So they get the quality seed. At the same time, actually, during this COVID period, actually lockdown period, we found that, some women are actually producing seeds. That's very important, but depend on the, species like brinjal. They are producing seeds, and for cucumber as well. So some seeds they produce and they share within themselves actually. And now today we have the meeting with one of our seed company for another projects, and we are just discussing that regarding how because they also promoting and trained farmers to produce quality seeds. And then we are thinking about the sustainability, and we are just thinking to build the capacity of our participants to grow their own seeds. But for the oil, is my colleague mentioned that for all the species it is not possible. For some species they can do, and they are already doing. And sometimes they produce like suppose bottle guard, they produce their planting materials, and selling of the planting materials also a good business in our coastal community, like bottle guard. They produce it, and that kind of floating garden technology they use, and they sell it. So floating of planting, selling of planting materials is also a good business for them. So sometimes they grow it and sell it, particularly the winter vegetable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. I have a very interesting contribution from Gift Mwembe from Malawi, who gives a great example. Gift writes, in Malawi, we have some home gardens that we see are for program participants whom we stopped engaging 3 to 4 years ago. This is really an indication that it's still sustainable. Some qualitative data also indicates that it's freed income for mostly women and end up boosting their financial base in village savings and loans. Yeah, thank you, Gift, for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And in fact, Ghassan, my colleague at IGZ and ISTC, and I, together with Pepin Schreinemachers and some other colleagues in Bangladesh, have tracked the activities of a project that World Veg did there many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago by now, and we still see impact there. Yeah, that the simple training for women there also was sustainable. So much to the topic that we touched on earlier on the sustainability. Somebody asked, sorry, there are lots of questions here. It's really interesting. Sylvia Kaufmann asked, what is the government attention to the activities? And perhaps it'd be interesting to see that both for Niger and Bangladesh. Any options for integrating these impactful activities into other, budgets, public sector work, and budget plans, sort of basically upscaling it, I suppose. Yeah. What do you think? Is that something that's being discussed?
Yeah, in Niger, I think it's not easy because clearly there are initiatives which are conducted at really household level and private level. So in terms of politics, I think it's something we have to reflect on. But clearly we are trying here in Niger to implicate, to make local services, agricultural local services, participating into this intervention. So we organized a regular field visit and also trainings, so that we can even organize trainings by agents from the governments, but also to train agents of the government on this approach. So this is some already a little contribution going in this direction.
Okay.
That in Bangladesh, that Department of Agriculture Extension actually doing excellent job. That means that they have a lot of success, but in the coastal context, due to the remoteness, it's very difficult to get the government support. But in our project intervention, actually, we develop a kind of community volunteer, that community resilience action group. Through them, actually, we connect the community to the government support system. So they organize the training and invite the government officials to the training. And at the agriculture department, actually, that in Bangladesh, we work with the local government institutions, particularly the Union Council. It's an oldest and very strong organization at the local government, at the local level, and at the Department of Agriculture have their staff at that Union Council level. So we link them with the community and arrange some kind of visits at the community level, as they can know, and that mobile phone is now available. So we are trying to use this mobile phone communication to land with the government officials or extension support system. So these are the way actually we connect them, and some field demonstration also they work. We found that it works. So this is the way actually connect them, and strengthening this system is a part of our project objective. That's why actually we are achieving some progress in this perspective.
Yeah, and also in addition, in some countries, concern is promoting home gardens through the nutrition programs, and there we are closely working with community health volunteers and also health workers that are part of the government system. And through those women groups led by government officials, the training is provided, and also involves, depends on the country, agriculture extension officers as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more round of questions, and then we would like to close on time. Several listeners are asking why pesticides and fungicides are being used, and is that a good idea? And shouldn't you be using some other, maybe indigenous techniques or so? I think there's a real concern for your beneficiaries there. Could you maybe comment on that, please?
Yeah, maybe in concern, we do not promote chemicals, not fertilizer, not pesticides and herbicides. We do promote home remedies, there's very localized recipes for this. But in some circumstances, obviously in Bangladesh, we promote, but through cash support. So we do not provide directly, unless, I don't know, Sayeed, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think that integrated pest management is a very good program in Bangladesh. So we use the kind of, light trap and some indigenous technology we also use. And that when actually we are not promoting kind of even the hybrid seeds, that hybrid seeds is very much susceptible to insect attack or others. And actually our farmers or our women, actually it's then mostly practiced by the women. Actually they are not using that level of pesticides or fungicides that much, and mostly they are using the local remedy. Suppose we call it neem pata. There's some herbal plants they also use as a pesticide here in Bangladesh.
Thank you for elaborating that. I think that's good to know and very helpful. We're coming to the end of this webinar, and I'd just like to, maybe in reverse order, invite each of the contributors to share one more thought of what you would like to have as your last word in this particular session. Sayeed, maybe you can start. What else would you like to share with the listeners?
Listeners, I think that that we are implementing this home garden in a very challenging context where the impact of climate change is so high. So salinity is then a big challenge for us, and we are trying to address this issue in different way. That means that identifying some tolerant species which are suitable at the moderate salinity level, and also some planting technique or growing technique through like sagbed or others. And at the same time, it is also important when during this COVID period they have the surplus production, so there the women need to link with the market. That's also very important, and women empowerment. But we found that actually through this home garden practice, actually women are empowered within their family as well as the community, because they are supporting the family. Because during particularly this COVID situation, when there is no movement and lockdown, market is not working, so at least it's an food security perspective is very important and meeting the nutrition requirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sayeed. Jean-Patrick, would you like to share your reflections?
Yeah, indeed. As a final reflection about this approach, I think it's important to have in our thought that it's not the home garden is not the final achievement, but it can be also a good manner to develop also activities around home gardens. So solidarity groups, we also work with VSLAs around these groups, but also to try to organize solidarity groups and groups of people that can help each other to develop strategies. So I think it can be a good way also to develop other strategies around home gardens, like cooking demonstrations. And I think it's a really interesting tool to develop other related strategies in relation to food security and nutrition.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean-Patrick. And then last but not least, Regine.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm really excited about this series of webinars on home gardening. Thanks so much for organizing it. It's excellent to see so many experts on this topic. and to move home gardening out of this slightly forgotten niche, and to give it more attention. And I would like to, ask all of us to further work on generating evidence, not just anecdotal evidence, but evidence, hard facts, and to really then scale up interventions and have that we can reach many more people with this approach. That would be my hope for the future.
Yes, thank you, Regine. I echo that. I think we need, and it was also echoed by some of our listeners, we need more evidence to show how well these interventions can work. And I think our webinar series has shown that there's a lot of evidence out there of how successful it is. We need to talk about it more. Home gardens shouldn't be an add-on or sort of a byproduct or something one could also do. It can be a very important strategy to help. As you say, it won't solve all problems, but it can address some important issues. We have a mailing list. We would like to continue working on these topics. Our research team is happy to collaborate with anybody who would like to develop knowledge and learning products and projects around their interventions. And we're happy to keep in touch. We'll keep publishing on these topics and put out studies. And we hope to continue also this webinar series after what will be our summer break coming up, so that we have more evidence presented. Thank you all for your interest, and I look forward to keeping in touch. And please feel free to write to us if you have any questions and any suggestions for further collaborations. Yeah, thank you for your interest. Thank you, Regine, Jean-Patrick, and Sayeed. It's great having you. Good work at Concern. Keep it up. Yeah, it's important work, and we're glad you're doing it, and we're glad to be talking about it. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.